On an early morning of 28 December 2014, AirAsia Flight 8501 was a routine flight. The flight was at full capacity, but no one knew that it would be their last. Just 42 minutes en route, it crashed into the Java Sea, killing everyone on board. What could be the reason that a highly sophisticated and safe aircraft just vanished into the dark? Was it a technical issue, or a thunderstorm, or a pilot error? Let's find out. Let me know what your suggestions are in the comment box. Indonesia AirAsia Flight 8501 was a scheduled flight from Surabaya in Indonesia to Singapore. The aircraft was an Airbus A320. The aircraft was 6 years old and had accumulated approximately 23,000 flight hours, over 13,600 flights. It had undergone its most recent scheduled maintenance on 16th of November 2014. It was 5 in the morning with the clouds covering the sky. The A320 was parked at the gate of Juanda International Airport with the passengers boarding the aircraft. The flight had 155 passengers and 7 crew members on board. The passengers consisted of 137 adults, 17 children, and 1 infant. The cockpit crew details are the following. At time 5:20, 8501 gets clearance for taxi to runway 10 and starts its procedures normally. At time 5:34, 8501 is ready on the runway for its takeoff roll. After departure, everything was very normal. 14 minutes later, it reached its cruising altitude at flight level 320. It was heading northwest out over the western Java Sea. The plane was in contact with Jakarta Air Traffic Control. The weather ahead was not too good. They encountered thunderstorms on their way. And for the cherry on top, something unexpected was going to happen. At 6 local time, the captain notices something. There was a warning on the electronic centralized aircraft monitor, known as the ECAM. Along with the warning, there was a master caution light to indicate a fault with the rudder limiter system. The rudder limiter system controls and limits the deflection of the rudder on the vertical stabilizer and also controls it when the autopilot is activated. The ECAM is an onboard computer which gives warnings and instructions how to clear the problem. The captain read the instructions for fixing the failure and rebooted the aircraft's 2 flight augmentation computers, the FACs, by pressing the switches on and off on the overhead panel. The same fault reoccurred after a few minutes at time 6:09 and the captain fixed it in the same way. At time 11 past 6, the pilot turned 15 degrees to the left to avoid bad weather and contacted Jakarta ATC to request a climb to flight level 380. Unfortunately, the controller couldn't give them immediate permission for this due to the other aircraft in the vicinity and instructed them to wait. While they were waiting for permission to climb, the rudder limiter problem occurred for a 3rd time, and for the 3rd time the captain reset the FAC computers again. After a few minutes, the problem occurred for the 4th time, giving them a master caution light. The captain got really frustrated and decided to reset the FAC circuit breakers. He had previously seen this action being performed by a ground engineer and believed that it was acceptable to do so in flight. Now, every time this message and the warning came up, the aircraft appeared to be rolling, which required immediate correction. So when the captain resets the FAC circuit breakers at time 16 past 6, it gave them immediate consequences, as this action did not only reset the FAC computers, but also disconnected the autopilot and the autothrottle. It allowed the aircraft to roll to the left, and by the time the first officer reacted to this, it was banked at 54 degrees. The captain said, "Level, level, level." Now, because it was dark outside, it's very possible that the crew was disoriented. Due to the roll sensation which was happening every time the warning came up, they had to roll and recorrect the aircraft, and it was overcorrected twice. Firstly, by making a sharp right input and then a sharp left input. After that, at time 17 past 6, the first officer made an unexpected nose-up input on his side stick, which caused the aircraft to enter a steep climb at a 24-degree nose pitch-up. Now, why did he do that remains a mystery, but I think it was due to the loss of situation awareness. In the time of just 54 seconds, the aircraft climbed from 32,000 feet to 38,500 feet It exceeded a climb rate of 10,000 feet per minute. Now, because of such a high rate of climb and disconnection of the autothrottles, the plane was losing airspeed rapidly. From 270 knots, it was down to just 145 knots. And both the captain and the first officer were confused of what was happening, as they were getting a stall warning. The captain at several occasions told him to pull down on the stick, and that was exactly what the first officer was doing. He was pulling the side stick, causing a pitch-up moment. As he had lost all the situation awareness, he couldn't understand that he was just pitching up. However, if the captain said push down, it would have been much more clear to what he meant. The captain was pushing down on his stick and the first officer was pulling up, which was contradicting each other. There was a warning for that on the ECAM, but because of the alarms going on, it wasn't noticed. Even though he tried to take priority on his side, he couldn't. There's a button on the side stick to get priority over the controls, but according to the investigators, it had to be pressed for 40 seconds in order to get the priority. Flight 8501 was in a dangerous situation and it was running out of time. With the alarms and the stall warning going, the aircraft reached its peak and there wasn't enough lift on the wings and it entered a stall. 8501 started to fall like a brick. At around 17 past 6, 40 seconds, the Airbus was descending at a rate of up to 20,000 feet per minute, and it also began a turn to the left. The crew couldn't believe what they were seeing on their instruments. It formed at least one complete circle before disappearing from the radar. At 18 past 6, 44 seconds, the aircraft crashed into the Java Sea and was destroyed.
Pull up. Sink rate. Pull up.
100 above.
Pull
300.
up.
100.
The cockpit voice recorder captured multiple warnings, including a stall warning sounding in the cockpit during the final minutes of the flight. At 20 past 6:35 seconds, the flight data recorder stopped recording and the cockpit voice recorder stopped recording 1 second later at 20 past 6:36 seconds. Coming to the investigation, shortly after the aircraft was confirmed to be missing, reports stated that wreckage had been found off the island of Belitung in Indonesia. The Indonesian Navy, the National Police Air and Water Unit each sent out search and rescue teams. Now, the data from the flight data recorder was downloaded, although the aircraft's route took it through areas of cloud that were extended from 12,000 feet to 44,000 feet. The flight data recorder showed that the weather was not a factor in the accident. On the day of disappearance, one of the fishermen observed a lot of derbies, some small and some large. He said it looked like AirAsia colors. Another fisherman reported that around 7 a.m. local time, he heard a loud booming sound. He said, "Before the exploding sound, my friends saw a plane heading towards the sea. The plane was said to be flying relatively low, but then it disappeared." The first items of the wreckage were spotted by search aircraft on 30th of December in the Karimata Strait, 10 kilometers from where the crew last contacted air traffic control. 124 minutes of data was recovered from the CVR. The sound of many alarms from the flight system could be heard in the final minutes of the flight, almost drowning out the voices of the pilots. The investigators ruled out a terrorist attack as the cause. They then examined the possibility of human error or aircraft malfunction. On the 1st of December 2015, Indonesia's National Transport Safety Committee issued a report with their conclusions. The report stated that the sequence of events that led to the crash started with a malfunction in two of the plane's rudder travel limiter units, the RTLUs. A tiny electrical connection caused it all. It was found to be cracked. With the plane's maintenance records, it showed that the RTLU warning had been sent 23 times over the previous year. This really shows that how the aircrafts were being maintained at AirAsia. On this flight, the RTLU issue sent an amber caution warning 4 different times, and the first 3 times that the ECAM system gave the warning, the captain followed the ECAM instructions, toggling the FAC buttons on and off on the overhead panel. This procedure did clear the amber caution warning lights for each of those first 3 warnings. But when it occurred for the 4th time, the captain chose to ignore the procedure advised by the ECAM instructions, and instead he left his seat and reset the whole circuit breaker of the entire FAC, which unintentionally disengaged multiple flight control systems. And circuit breakers are not supposed to be reset during flight. Disabling both the FAC placed the aircraft in alternate law mode, disengaging the autopilot and stopping the automatic stall protection and bank angle protection. The FAC is the part of the fly-by-wire system in the 320 which is responsible for controlling flight surfaces including the rudder. Without the FAC's computerized flight augmentation systems, the pilots would have to rely on manual flying skills. And as we saw, there was a 9-second delay by the first officer to control the aircraft when it banked to 54 degrees. And the chain of events and multiple errors caused the loss of flight 8501. However, my opinion on this is that there was a miscommunication between the pilots. If there was proper communication between the pilots and the procedures were followed correctly, I really don't think so that this accident would have happened in the first place. Anyhow, let me know what you guys think in the comment box. If you like the video, please share and subscribe my channel.